Morning, everyone. I think we're having a couple of technical difficulties today, but I will go ahead and get started. So just so you know, my name is Craig Thompson. I'm with Omnex. I run one of the divisions within Omnex Plan Tech. We handle quite a few different things, which I'll show you here as well. But today, just so everybody knows, we're going to talk about some of the upcoming key changes to AS9100, a little bit of a background behind AS9100 and what it entails, as well as a little bit about IAQG, just some rough things. There will be a couple of polls as we go through. So, and please, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A section at the bottom. Just click on that, put your questions in. I will try and keep an eye out for those as try and answer them as we go through, but if not, we'll make sure we get to all of them at the end. So please put your questions in when you're thinking about them, rather than waiting until the end. If you wait until the end, you might forget what your question was. So feel free to pop those in the Q&A section at any time as we go through. All right, so we're going to talk about changes. All right, can everybody hear me? Hopefully, I believe everybody should be able to. So, okay, I appreciate that. Somebody chimed in, so thank you very much. All right, we've been having a little bit of technical issues today. I guess it's that end of the month thing. I don't know with Zoom. Who knows? But all right, so we're going to talk about changes to AS9100. So there's a little bit about Omnex here at the front. For those that have not dealt with Omnex before, maybe you've had some Omnex classes before, maybe you've just heard of Omnex. We are kind of out there. We do quite a bit of stuff. We are a global company. We do a lot of training worldwide. We do implementations, coaching, mentoring. We do gap assessments. We do internal audits. We do supplier audits. We pretty much run the gamut across quite a bit of different ISO standards, aerospace, medical device, automotive, as well as general manufacturing. We're in about 30 different countries. And we're up to, I believe, 15 or 17 different languages now as well, which is good. We also do a lot of software development. We'll talk about that for just a second as well. But we are headquartered out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. For those that don't know, some of you, I think I saw some of the names of some of the participants today. You may have been in some of my classes before, and I teach a lot of classes as well. I'm headquartered out of Texas, right, where it stays warm during the wintertime. This is just a kind of a slide to show you where some of our offices are across the globe. So these are our 6 target markets. These are the big markets that we're in quite a bit. Like I said, automotive, aerospace, medical device, general manufacturing. We do a lot with EV/AV vehicles as well as semiconductors. We do everything from machine components all the way to electrical components and systems and testing. Help out anywhere that we can. Oops. So these are just some of our services. Like I said, we do audits and assessments. We do product certification. We do product audits. We do some staffing. We also help with gap assessments, like I said, as well as audits. We also do a lot of APQP and PFMEA and DFMEA work with clients as well, helping them establish those programs or making those APQP programs more robust. And we do, like I said, quite a bit of training. Omnex Plan Tech, this is the division that I'm representing today. But we do internal audits. You'll see auditing services. We also handle our supplier services, anything within the supply chain, as well as APQP solutions. We also do PPAP review. We have a system where we can actually review PPAPs ahead of time before you submit them to make sure that everything is okay, everything matches, all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted. And we actually use artificial intelligence type software to help with that to make it quicker. So what would take normally man hours to do, we can do in just a few minutes. And then we also handle staffing. This is our OBOT system that I was talking about, our AI system for helping with our PPAP reviews. And it learns and it learns company specific. So if you turn in we help with other PPAPs down the road, it still remembers from when we looked at your PPAPs before to try and help it. So just a little bit about me. You might have seen that on the slides that we're scrolling through as everybody was logging on. But I have almost 24, 25 years as a quality manager and a quality director in manufacturing, aerospace, medical device, automotive, general manufacturing. I've worked in every kind of manufacturing environment you can think of: textiles, wiring harnesses, machine shops, bonding, plating, sheet metal. I've pretty much ran the gamut. Pretty well-rounded background. And like I said, in all the big industries as well. I've worked with a lot of the big OEMs out there in all these different industries. Parker Hannifin, Bombardier, Triumph Group, to name a few, especially on the aerospace side, as well as some of the smaller mom and pop type shops as well. I do quite a few assessments and audits as well as training classes. So I also handle all of the special processes for NADCAP and for the CQIs as well, in training those and doing assessments and helping people get certified. That's just a little bit about me. So this slide is kind of talking about what we're going to cover today. All right, so everybody kind of knows the international industry standards, whether it's ISO, AS, the IATF, pretty much all the standards out there. They're kind of on every 5 to 7 years is when the new revision comes out, right? So the latest Rev D for AS9100 was back in 2016. So we're well past time for a new one. The problem is the pandemic kind of pushed everything to the right, but it is in work. And that's what we're going to talk about today, what some of the key changes are, and kind of what my involvement is with IAQG and some of the different things like that, as well as we're going to talk about a couple other standards that are actually changing or revising as well. So we're going to talk about, like I said, some of the key changes. We can't go into all of them. If I went through all of the changes that were happening throughout the entire AS standard, we would be here for the whole day, right? Especially with lots of questions and comments and concerns. So we're just going to focus on the key changes. There will be more webinars to come throughout the year on this subject as we get closer and closer to the release date. We'll also talk about some of the difficulties and the timelines around transitioning from one standard to the next. So, and then we'll talk a little bit about how maybe Omnex can help you if you would like that kind of a help. All right. So there's a first poll here. Is your organization currently certified to AS9100? Right, to the D revision. So I don't know. I know we were having some technical difficulties this morning, so we were trying to get these pulled in. Hopefully it's there for everybody to click. But if not, oh, there it is. Perfect. So yeah, what we're looking for is if you're already certified or not. That's the big thing. And if you're not, that's completely fine as well, right? Most aerospace suppliers are at some point. Let me see. We had a question come up. I do believe we can, if you will reach out after. Oh, here's the poll real quick. Okay, so the majority of folks that are here are not AS9100 certified by a slim margin, but that's okay, which is okay. So you're kind of in a good seat. If you're not already certified, you're not going to have to change from one to the next, which is okay. There was a question pop up in the Q&A about the slides. That's what I was going to answer first before the results popped up. If you want the slides after, I believe you can reach out to however you registered for the webinar, and I believe we can accommodate that. I believe there's like a little form you fill out and send in. They send you the slides. It's not a big process. So okay. So a little bit about AS9100 series of documents, right? It's a little bit about IAQG, so everybody kind of understands where the standard comes from, okay? So IAQG is the International Aerospace Quality Group. It's made up of 3 different sections, okay? It's made up of the American group, the European group, and the Asia Pacific group. This just kind of shows you roughly how many members from each area are involved. And it's all of the big players with aerospace, right? Bell Helicopter, Boeing, Airbus, Rolls-Royce, GE, Pratt& and Whitney, right? I want to say Mitsubishi Heavy, some of those players as well in the Asia Pacific group. So it just kind of shows you where. So what they've done in the past is IAQG worked out the copyright issues. So they copied ISO straight over, word for word, and then they added their own stuff in to make AS9100. So if you've ever read through the standard, all the stuff in bold is specific from aerospace. So what they've gone to now, and we'll talk about this more. Okay, so yes, the change. So somebody asked the question if any of the AS9100 changes will impact AS9110, and they will, and we'll talk about that as well as we go. So that's actually a good question, which we will cover. So it is sector specific, right? This is meant to be, IAQG is meant to be aerospace and defense. There's also a few other AS series standards out there. For those that aren't familiar, AS9110 is for repair and overhaul. Goes to the Q&A question a minute ago. So repair and overhaul folks have their own standard. We also have AS9115, which is for the deliverable software, mostly for like avionics packages. It's a good example. Companies like Honeywell, things like that. We also have AS9120, which is the watered down version of AS9100 for distributors. All of those require you to have a third party certification audit through a registrar. BBQI, BSI, what's some other DQS, right? Just to name a few. So there's there's a bunch of them out there. Okay. But it's meant to be used for anybody that does aviation, space, defense products. And really what it was for was to standardize across the globe so everybody's playing the same playbook. Now, how you meet all those requirements within AS9100, that's up to you as an organization, right? Some people need more documents, some people need less, some people need more extra training, some people don't need as much. Depends on your organization, how you meet all those requirements, but the requirements are the same for everybody. Like I said, it was released back in September 2016. That's the latest and greatest one that's out there. But they are working on the new one. And we'll talk about that. The new one's actually going to be released later this year, published. That is the goal. That is the current plan. I have not heard anything different in the last few months. So that is still pretty much the standard they're shooting for. Like I said, these are those 4 different ones. There are a few other aerospace series, but these are mostly the big 4 that you get certified to. And again, like I said, AS9110 is for repair and overhaul. AS9115 is that deliverable software. 9120 is for distributors. AS9100 is general manufacturing for aerospace, whether it's new parts, whether you're build to print or you're design responsible. AS9100 for manufacturing. So there is a second poll here. And what I'm asking here is if for those that are currently certified to AS9100, which there was a few, right? It's about half and half almost. Is it set to expire within the next 18 to 24 months? So, and you'll see the reason I'm asking in the next couple of slides, but most of the time we'll talk about this, but you have a 18-month period usually on when your certificate expires or when the new standard comes out, when you need to be transitioned to the new. It's usually like an 18 to 24 month. Now, we'll talk about this in the next couple of slides. So let's see. Okay. So there is a few that said yes, actually, which is okay. All right. Most of you said no, which is all right as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about transition timeline. You'll see why I asked that question on the last slide. So in most instances, when a new standard comes out, you have 18 months to transition from the old version to the new version. Now, there are some exceptions, and what those exceptions are is usually they look at when your current certificate expires, right? So if you are sooner than that 18 months for expiration date, they will, a lot of times you can get grace period through your registrar and through IAQG to extend that out to be transitioned over in that 18 months. If your current certificate expires after that 18 months, they're going to be looking for you to be, when it expires, to be transitioned over to the new standard. Okay. You also have to make sure that you, and this is one of the big issues for everybody when a new standard comes out, it really is. And it usually focuses into a time crunch. And one of the other exceptions that I forgot to mention is that if everybody's trying to transition at the same time, there's a strain on the auditor pool that's out there for all the registrars. Most third-party auditors are not employees of the registrar. They're independent contractors, and they contract with 4 or 5 different registrars to keep their schedule full. So there is a strain on the auditors, just due to the lack of the number of AS9100 auditors out there. Now, I did sort of recommend, or I put this recommendation on here, and the reason I labeled it, and everybody might have noticed that it says IA9100 instead of AS9100. It is actually changing to IA9100 from AS9100. So it was aerospace standard 9100. Now it's going to be International Aerospace 9100. And we'll talk about that more. I have some slides on that and what's actually going to be entailed in it. But I just want you to know, if you caught that here, and I sort of did that for a reason, just to kind of see if everybody was paying attention when it switched from AS to IA on the screen. Okay. We do, as Omnex, we do recommend, when the new standard is finally published, which hopefully stays on track for October, November of this year, we recommend that you do a gap assessment as soon as you can to see where you stand, especially if your certificate is running out, right? And you need to get that done, because you have to have your new audit, right? Your recertification audit to the new standards. You have to do that at least 90 days before your certificate expires. Right? We all know within third-party registration, you have that 90-day window, right, to get all your corrective actions fixed. And if you have any majors, for them to come back and buy those off in a special audit or to get everything closed out, you have that 90 days. So, but you can't go past your expiration date of your certificate. Does that make sense? So you have to have your audit early enough to give you time to fix any findings they have before your certificate actually expires. Right? So, which is why we also recommend doing that gap assessment sooner rather than later, to see, okay, what's missing between the old standard that we were certified to or looking to be certified to and what the new standard says. So there is I have another poll out here, and what we were looking at is, were you aware that it was actually changing from AS9100 to IA9100? I know what my thought process is as far as what the poll results will be. That makes sense. I honestly knew they were revising it, but until I was at the last IAQG meeting in the fall of last year, I did not know they were actually switching nomenclature. So it was kind of that was a new one for me. But okay, so the majority, a little bit, the majority says no. Okay, which is fair. I mean, like I said, I didn't know until I went to the IAQG conference in San Francisco last year That's when I found out first about it. I knew it was under revision. I knew they were working on it. I knew what some of the changes were, but I didn't know they were actually changing the title, or at least the numbering scheme. Okay. So we're going to talk about the changes as well here. And this is where I know the meat of what most of you came for, which is good. We're always up for changes, I guess. There's an old quote I like to use all the time. The only thing constant is change. Oh, there's a question real quick. Okay, IA. Somebody asked the question, define IA acronym. IA is going to stand for International Aerospace. That's honestly what it's going to be. Okay. So it's moving from AS9100 and it's moving to IA9100F. So it's also skipping Rev E. I'm not 100% sure why they skipped Rev E. They had started Rev E before the pandemic, and during the pandemic, a lot of things changed, and IAQG decided, you know what, let's scrap that and just go with. They're not redoing the format, but there's a lot of wording changes. So they just scrapped E and went straight to F. It's kind of the answer they gave everybody. But it's IA stands for International Aerospace. And what they're doing is they're going to one document globally. So for those that were familiar with AS9100, there was also the AS version. There was the EN9100 for European. There was the JISQ version, JISQ 9100 for the Asia Pacific group. So they are going to IA 9100 and it's one document globally. So everybody has the exact same document. So that is the other reason it's been taking a little while longer, is just to make sure the translation is the same across the board for everybody, so that all the words mean the same thing. So you are going to see, when the new standard comes out, you are going to see the way some things are worded are a little bit different, just to make sure the translation was the same for everybody. So everybody, all the requirements have the same meaning for everyone. So it is set to be released in October 2020. Sorry, should have been 2024. I had a typo. Oh, my word. And basically, it's going to be published. The projected date is November 2024 is when it will be published out there for everybody to go out there and purchase the standard as well. And we all know the standards cost money, which kind of sucks, but that's kind of what we have to go with. So we're going to talk about some of the key changes. This is the big thing. You're going to see product safety. They're going to include some actual more information on product safety management within 813. Okay. And again, I didn't go into what all the verbiage is going to be within these clauses, because I was part of, like I said, when I was at the IQG meetings, I was part of the group. I am on a couple of the committees, and we'll talk about those later as well, some new standards that are coming out. But if I was to put all the verbiage in here of how it was going to change, like I said, we would be here at least all day, right? Maybe even run into the next day. But so I only captured where different things were going. But that is big. Product safety. There's going to be more verbiage on how you handle product safety, what you have to do around your product safety programs. And that's going to be included in 813. Information security is also a big addition, right? We all know cybersecurity is a big thing now, right? A lot more and more organizations are getting certified to the ISO 27001 for cybersecurity. It is going to be in the new IA 9100. It's going to have its own standalone clause in 717 under the support clause, right? Sort of tied to the infrastructure. If you remember the version now, even in ISO, IT is included as part of the infrastructure. They are actually going to expand on that and give it its own clause in 717, as well as add some things in 8.1 around planning and control, right, under the operations clause. Now, the next big one, real big one, is quality culture. So they're taking a lot of requirements from the ISO 110, 10,010, and they're including that, and it's going to be part of clause 714, which is also the infrastructure part of support, right, under the environment of operations of processes. This quality culture, you're going to see quality culture throughout the new standard in various places. The meat of it is going to be in 714. Let me grab this question. And yes, they are looking at there's beforehand, before they finish this, there is going to be a slight revision to ISO 10010, which is the other reason they have targeted November of this year rather than they were originally looking at early spring, like April, May timeframe to publish it. But 10,010 is going to have some changes, so they're waiting on those. But again, it's going to be the nuts and bolts of your quality culture stuff is going to be in 714. So some more changes. Counterfeit parts, which we all know in aerospace is a big issue within it's a billion-dollar industry still, even though everybody puts all these controls in place and everything else, it is still a big issue across the board. But they're going to expand clause 814 for some more definition on what your counterfeit parts program has to include. And a lot of that is coming from the FAA, has come out with some more additional requirements, and they're going to include those within this International Aerospace 9100. So they're also going to include MSA, right? So nowhere in the standard, in the new standard, is going to specifically say thou shalt do APQP. But they are including all sorts of notes and references to it, right? So it's pretty much leading you down that road that you're going to have to do APQP and AS9145, right? So they are including that. And they are going to start including MSA, which is the measurement system analysis. That's going to be a note within clause 715. And also control plans are going to be added as a note within clause 8 in 2 or 3 different places. So I didn't put the actual clause numbers down. It's going to be in, I believe it's 4. I want to say 4 different places within clause 8. They're going to reference control plans as a note as well. In addition to that, clause 8.1K, right? So in that list in 8.1 of all the things you need to include within your operational planning and control is going to now include FOD. It's going to include both FODs. So for those that don't know, FOD with a capital D is for damage. FOD with a small d is for debris, right? So all of the wiring pieces, the shielding, nuts, bolts, the trash that can get into things, that's the debris, which is the small d, and it can cause the capital D, which is the damage. But they're actually going to add an actual line item to 8.1, letter K. And they're also going to include in clause 843, which is, we know, is suppliers, right? 8.4 is all about suppliers. They're going to actually add a line item K to 843 as well. That includes how your suppliers have to handle their FOD programs and all the different things around that. There's also the standard, I believe it's AS9146, I believe is the FOD standard. That is still staying the same. That is not in the works of being changed currently. Could be down the road, but currently it's not. Along with quality culture, they're also going to be adding ethical behavior in a wide variety of locations. So before you saw the ethical behavior, it was in the competent section and then the awareness section of the standard. It's going to be in a lot more sections, right? So there's this big push for ethical behavior and professionalism and things throughout the standard as well, right? So you are going to have to actually have some sort of ethical behavior training for more than just the front office folks. Right now, currently, usually just the office folks, the staff, right? Top management, those folks are always having to do the annual ethical training, right? Watch the video, take the little quiz. It's going to be more than that now. You're going to have to include pretty much everybody in the facility. Also, one of the big pushes that they're including is statutory and regulatory requirements take precedent over the QMS requirements. So they take precedent over the IA9100 requirements. They also take precedence over the customer requirements. So you have to go with the more stringent of the requirement, right? So whichever group has the most stringent, that's the one you need to go by. But at the end of the day, if statutory and regulatory requirement is a bigger requirement, you have to go with that, which ties into the question before about 9110. There is a lot of statutory and regulatory requirements around AS9110. Those take precedence over the actual 9110 requirements. But yes, they are in the middle of revising 9110. We'll talk about that. There's some other changes. They're going to talk about process identification, how you have to identify your processes. They're going to talk more about your process verifications, how you verify your process is working like it's supposed to, as well as continual improvement. They're wanting you to use AIM, Aerospace Industry Maturity Model is what AIM stands for. If you go to the IAQG website, there is a link to click on to go to AIM. You do have to register. It's free registration, but you do have to register, and then they will send you with a login and a password so that you can get into the AIM and you can see the different categories within AIM. And it's a way to check your QMS system to make sure that you're continually improving, right? You're trying to make your QMS better. It's a tool for that. We are in the process of developing a course through Omnex on AIM and how to check it, as well as a check sheet to be able to use as a tool. That will probably be set to go with that. I would say the middle of next month, the middle of March, we should be ready to go for that. We'll start offering that course as well. Okay. So there are some other standards that are kind of changing a little bit. So we're going to talk about AS9145. AS9145 is the aerospace version of APQP, right? And the 5 different phases within APQP. There's a question just a second. Yes, the calibration is part of it. They're not really changing a lot of the calibration requirements, but there is going to be a bigger focus that you record somewhere within your documentation for each work order or job that goes through your facility. They are going to want you to start recording for sure which measurement gauge was used for the different measurements and inspections throughout your shops. Oops, okay. So AS9145, it's kind of going down the same road. It's going to change over to IA9145. So some of the key changes to that is more flow down requirements to pass on throughout the supply chain, right? So all of your sub-tier suppliers, how you're going to flow down 9145 there. There's going to put more definition and clarification for the non-design responsible suppliers, right? And how that has to work around basically build to print for all of you that are build to print shops. It is going to add some requirements for better defined roles, responsibilities, and authorities within your APQP program. In other words, who does what piece of the puzzle and when. You're going to have to put all that into your program as well. And it's also going to enhance some of the requirements or add to some of the requirements on when you submit your PPAP and what all needs to go along with that. Right now, there's only the 11 documents that need to be part of your PPAP. They're going to add a few extra. Right now, there's not a plan to go to 19. There's 19 elements within an automotive PPAP for any of you that have automotive background. It's not going to go that high, but it is going to probably be more than 11. And it is set to be released in late 2024, early 2025. So my guess is going to be more early 2025. So probably Q1 of 2025. There should be the new 9145 standard out there as well. Right. But right now, I do want to mention this too. 9145 is not a certifiable standard. You don't get certified to 9145. Right? It is a on your own type of situation when your customer requires it. But a lot of companies within aerospace are starting to jump on it now to get kind of ahead of the curve. All right. There's also some changes within the supply chain management handbook. For those that don't know, SCMH, that's supply chain management handbook. It is a good tool that is out there. It is put together very well. The folks that wrote it did a very good job of including a lot of different topics and a lot of different things, and it's laid out very well, easy to follow. Everything kind of has its own section. It is really good. So some of the additions that they're going to make, or changes they're going to make. Section 3.2 for first articles, they're going to put some more clarification in there. I will tell everybody 9102 first articles is not going away, right? That's here to stay. But they are making some changes to the requirements for first article inspections. It really is some clarifications, because there's been a lot of questions in probably the last 18 to 24 months. There's been a lot of questions on first articles. There's going to be better definition around design risk analysis and what's included in that. But again, if you are a build to print shop, chances are you're not involved with that design risk analysis up front. We talked about the FOD before and how that's going to be incorporated in the new IA standard. They are going to add some definitions and how to do FOD risk assessments, right, within the supply chain management handbook. They're going to actually include some tools on helping you evaluate your FOD programs. This next one, revisions underway to the supplier capability assessment questionnaire. This is a questionnaire for how you can add suppliers to your approved supplier list, right? Understanding their capabilities, what they can and can't do, right? And it's going to be in section 414. And section 715.1, remote technologies for audits of and product acceptances being revised and also being turned into its own IA standard. That's one of the committees I'm actually on, is helping do this, because I do a lot of remote activities, whether it's auditing or training classes or all sorts of different things. In this new world we live in, where a lot of things are virtual, we are creating an actual IA standard around how different activities need to be done, whether you're doing product acceptance, you're doing audits, how you handle assessments or training classes. We are putting some rules around that, as far as so that everybody's on the same page. But again, I will tell you, within this standard, it's like all the rest of them. It's going to tell you what needs to be done, but not necessarily how to do it. The how is left up to you as an organization. But there are some requirements around what your program needs to entail. Okay, so there's some new standards on the horizon we'll talk about a little bit. So like I said, this new remote application, right? It's going to be its new IA standard. We don't have a number yet, I will tell you that, but we are taking a lot of the information from either the supply chain management handbook or the NAS 413. Another question? So like I said before, they are adding some things around supplier capability. I'll let the question come up. And it is, a lot of it is centered around the technical requirements and what they can and can't do, or how they handle their processes and building their products. So. All right, another thing that's been added is, some of you may know, for those of you that are certified, we all know once you're certified to AS9100, all of your stuff is in the OASIS database. The OASIS database is now on version 3. Right, it was being developed. A lot of suppliers were using it as of October 2023. Was sort of going through, I guess you'd call it beta testing, right? There was some hand-picked suppliers to be able to use the new version. It does make it easier for you to upload your information, as well as look at different information of your suppliers that you may or may not want to add. Makes it easier for the customers to look at your information. So it's a little bit more user-friendly. And there's the AIM. We talked about this aerospace improvement maturity model, right? Has changed from 1.0 to 1.1, right? As of October. So the new AIM standards out there, I would tell all of you, you might want to go out to, like I said, the IAQG website, register for a login. It's a free registration, doesn't cost anything for you to be able to look at what this AIM the maturity model is and what it entails and how to accomplish it. It does give you instructions, but there's not a lot of training out there around it. There is a little bit of I think there's some training videos within that website as well. It's not too in depth. Does that make sense? Which is one reason Omnex is going to create a class, because I think more and more folks are going to want to start using it. But it's a way to determine where does our QMS stand and how do we get from just having a QMS and having a certificate on the wall to having, a world-class type system. Whoops, I go too fast. Okay. So one of the things I want to go over as well is maybe how Omnex can help a little bit if you would like that kind of a help. Some organizations do. We do a lot of things with clients, and it runs both ends of the spectrum, right? We have some clients that they do all this kind of stuff themselves, and the Omnex, we want you to check in on this once in a while. Maybe we have some that outsource their audits to us, different things like that. We also have some clients that are, maybe trying to get certified. They're like, hey, we want a lot of help, right? We don't have the resources or different things like that. See. Currently, as far as I know, somebody asked the question, is the SCMH, the Supply Chain Management Handbook, moving from SAE to IAQG or staying where it is in the SAE website? As far as I know right now, as of October, when we were there, the last I heard in October, it might have changed since then, but in October, it was going to stay with SAE, but I'm not 100% sure if it's changed since then. So that's a good question. Actually, I hadn't thought about that one. So, like I said in the very beginning, Omnex, we're more than just a training company. I know a lot of people come to our training classes on a wide variety of subjects, especially within aerospace. But we are on the forefront of a lot of the standards that are out there, whether it's ISO, whether it's automotive, aerospace, medical device. We have a lot of people within Omnex who are on a lot of these committees and on all these organizations. So we are kind of on the forefront of things, right? But we can't help with audits and non-conformances and different things like that. So we also have a lot of virtual type activities that we do, right? We can do almost all of our classes virtually. I do both virtual and in person at our organizations. So it kind of runs the gamut. It's on what's more comfortable for you. If you have multiple organizations that need to attend at once, maybe virtual is the way to go. Versus if you have a small organization in one facility, maybe you want more of the in-person thing. But I just want to make sure I pointed this out that we do a lot of virtual classes now. Every week we have classes going on, it seems like. So these are a lot of our aerospace type courses that we have going on. Right within Omnex, you can see we have auditor training, we have other AS series training, AS65000, 9146, 9102. We also have courses on AS13000. We also have a course on AS13100, which, if any of you are familiar with that, the lovely aerospace engine supplier group put that out during the pandemic when nobody was looking. It adds a lot of extra things for AS9100 as well as AS9145, if you're not familiar with that, but we have some classes on that as well. We also do NADCAP classes, and we have a lot of APQP type, risk management type classes that we have as well. Just want to make sure I point those out. And this slide right here, these are just some ones that are coming up in March, April, and May type of format. Some different classes, whether it's auditor classes, APQP classes. Actually, we do a lot of APQP events where we do a little bit of a training class, but we do more of a hands-on how to do a PFMEA or DFMEA with your actual products. Right? We do a lot of, right, we currently do that now for a lot of big OEMs within aerospace on how to manage their APQP programs. And it helps give you a baseline when we leave, hey, yeah, we have a good one. We have one to go from for the next time. So, and on that is all I have, but I'm up for any questions. when do you expect to have training sessions for lead auditor for IA9100F? My guess would probably be if you already have, well, there's two different things. So if you already have your lead auditor certificate, right, you don't need to go through the auditing portion again. It will just be like the 2-day understanding portion of what the new standard requires and what all the different clauses mean, right? So you don't have to redo the whole thing, right? Because the auditing portion, ISO 19011 and AS 9101, those are not changing right now. So the auditor rules are the same. My guess is as soon as it's published, which should be November, my guess would be probably by January, we'll probably have revised classes, would be my guess. I'm the one there's me and I think a couple others within Omnex who are the main aerospace folks, right? We will probably be on top of that as soon as it comes out and is published. We don't want to do it before it's actually published, just because if they make any other changes and our class is wrong, type of thing. So hopefully that answers it. But yeah, it would probably be, my guess would be January timeframe. So, okay, so another question. I was wondering if all internal audits still need to be reviewed by a lead auditor. Technically, no. They do need to be reviewed by whoever runs your audit program. Does that make sense? So if whoever runs your audit program at your facility, your audit program manager, they are responsible for reviewing the audits to make sure everything was done correctly. Because if you look at the rules around your audit program, the audit program manager is responsible for evaluating the internal audit process, making sure it's working like it's supposed to, and how to improve it, as well as evaluating the auditors and how to improve the auditor's skills, right? So they do need to be reviewed by the audit program manager, but technically they don't have to be a lead auditor. Most of the time, I will say a good 95% of the time they are, though, anyway, so it doesn't matter. The next question, excuse me. Is there an estimate timing on how long the new changes will take to implement? I would say, based on what I see, what I know that's going in there and where it's all going, I would say 3 to 9 months. Does that make sense? Depending on where you stand currently with your internal documentation and paperwork and processes and procedures. If you have a more robust system, I would say quicker. If you are newer to AS9100, a newly certified organization, right, or just starting from scratch, I would say it's going to take a little longer. So hopefully that helps answer that question. But yeah, I would say 3 to 9 months. Nothing's really earth shattering that you're going to have to recreate the wheel on. It's going to be more of revising some of your internal stuff to incorporate the new requirements. All right, are there any other questions? I think I got everybody's question. Hopefully I got everybody's question. It's always my goal. Hopefully this was beneficial. That's always my goal as well, to make sure this is beneficial for everybody, that everybody gets something out of it. Even if it's small, it's always my big takeaway, is hopefully it was beneficial for you. Like I said, you can reach back out to Omnex. I believe the slides are available. I'm not 100% sure. So, but if you reach out to where you registered for the seminar, you should be able to ask that question. I'm assuming that it is available. Right? Other than that, I will let everybody get out of here. I know we're a couple minutes early, nothing serious. Everybody can go get some real work done today, right? Rather than listening to me talk all day. Okay. Okay, yeah. So I did get confirmation. Omnex will reach out, and for those that are wanting the slide presentation, and be able to get you a copy of that as well. So, but again, if you have any questions down the road, anything aerospace related, I always like to point this out. I know the questions on there, info@omnex.com. You can send an email to there. My email is cthompson@omnex.com. Feel free to reach out. I do get to everybody's emails. It might not be within minutes because I might be teaching a class or doing a webinar or something to that effect, but I do get to everybody's questions that day. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions down the road. Other than that, I do appreciate everybody being here today and taking time. I know you had to take time out of your Thursday schedule. So I appreciate it. And other than that, I will let everybody go. I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you very much.